You know how you can be driving down the street and suddenly you have this memory that gets triggered by something out of nowhere, and you're just like taken back 1,000 years. I Our little town, we have a little town of maybe, I don't know, 20,000 people. I don't know. That's probably stretching it. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it has got donation boxes everywhere. Everywhere. Salvation Army, this, that, and the other, Red Cross. I mean, they're just everywhere. And it was funny because I remember back when I was a kid. I was born in '69, so when I was probably around 1976 or so, 7, 8 years old, my mom had to find clever ways to stretch the family's money. My dad was an alcoholic. I didn't really, of course, as a kid, know the severity of what was going on, but now as an adult, you know, we've got a few facts filled in. And anyway, at that time, she had to be very clever, and we would go over to my grandmother's house, which is another very, very small town, and when it would get dark, there was a Salvation Army box that was in a grocery store parking lot right dead center in the middle of town. And mind you, this is a very teeny town. And when it would get about dark, they would start, me and my grandmother and my mom would all pile up in the car and take off and go and scope this box out. And if there was nobody around, if there wasn't any traffic, the routine was, if there were bags outside on the ground, we would just pop the trunk and get out and pile them in the car and pile them in the trunk just as fast as we could freaking go. And then climb in on top of them and fly away. If there wasn't any bags on the outside, I would get out, my mom would get out, my grandmother would keep the car going, and my mother would look inside the box to see if there was a lot of bags in there, if there were things, you know, available. And if there were, then it was my job to climb inside the box, and I would get inside the box. At this time, these boxes just had the swingy flap thing. And I would get inside the box, and my mother and my grandmother would take off, and they would go sit down around the corner behind a building and watch. And my job was to kind of watch out for other cars and people and all this kind of stuff and throw bags out of the Goodwill box. And it's just so ridiculous now. I mean, it was terrifying, because what if somebody was to come drop something off, you know, and get that little flap open big enough to see a kid sitting in there? I mean, my God, what a donation, right? You know, you can get a kid. I mean, I would have freaking died, you know, much less somebody drive by and see these bags just coming out of the box, you know, like the box was rejecting, you know, those items. But anyway, my job was to put them out of the box, and then my mother and them would swing back around, and when they pop the trunk and the doors and they're loading it up, I'm climbing out of the box and we're loading it up. And we would take these things back to my grandmother's house, and I remember, I mean, God, we did it. We hit that box so many times. I mean, I'm very familiar with the inside workings of a Salvation Army box. I think the only reason we quit going is because I outgrew it. Honest to God. Because I think at some point it became fun and challenging and whatever. But honestly, we took it back to my grandmother's house and dumped it out in the kitchen or the living room area and went through it and kept things that we could wear, kept things that we could use. You know, shoes, socks, any household items. And we really, I don't remember being greedy about it. We would pretty much get the things we knew. If winter was coming up, summer was coming up, you know, kid had a growth spurt, whatever the case may be, we pretty much took the things that we could use, and then we'd bundle it all back up and take our butts down there and put it back in. And I know, I didn't think about this as a kid, but I know now that, of course, they knew the schedule. They pretty much knew when it would get picked up and, you know, get emptied, and it would start all over. So we wouldn't just be grabbing the same stuff all the time. But yeah, we did that for a long time. It was very, very interesting. I hope with all these donation boxes that are around the world that other kids aren't being put into them. I'm sure that there's some places in the world that give anything to have clothes accessible to be able to wear. But this is just my little tidbit of history, and thought you might find it funny. Be cool. Bye.